showing out, making moves, no doubt. FFA pride, it's what we're all about. From classroom dreams to real world flair, we got the stories you won't find anywhere. Beyond the jacket where the stories unfold, voices of the future, fearless and bold. Tune in now, let the passion ignite. It's more than a jacket, it's a way of life. Beyond the jacket where passion meets purpose.
Hey listeners, welcome back to the Beyond the Jacket podcast. We're super excited for yet another episode on this fantastic Friday. I have quite an awesome guest that I cannot wait to get to know, Miss Ellen Zimmerman. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, thanks so much, Paige. Excited to be here. Excuse me. I am Ellen Zimmerman. Currently, I'm the Director of Industry Relations for the U.S. Grains and BioProducts Council. I'm located in Washington, D.C., and I know we're talking beyond the jacket, so I'll also share I'm originally from Ohio. My FFA chapter was Mohawk. I did serve as a state officer for the state of Ohio 2010 to 2011. I'm a proud Buckeye alum, so my degree is in agricultural communications from Ohio State, and there's been a lot that's happened from the first time I put on the jacket, even the last time I put on the jacket, to where I am today. So excited to dig into it, and really honored to be a guest on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. I know I'm excited to dive into everything before, during, and after the blue jacket for sure, and especially into your career now because it definitely interests me. And I'm sure some of my listeners would like to know how this happened. Take us back to where your journey in FFA began.
Yeah, so thinking about that is so funny to me because I didn't really have like much of a choice or consideration for joining FFA. I have an older sister who had already joined and was kind of like in the chapter getting involved. But before that, both of my parents were involved in FFA. Both were state officers, and that's actually how they met. And so it was never an option for us to be an FFA as students. And I never questioned the non-option when I was like, yep, sure, I'll do it. And I, of course, really loved it and was so glad that I was a part of it once I was there. But it was like known from the day I was born, I was going to be an FFA.
Huh. See, both my parents, neither one of them were in FFA. I came from an ag background. My family's in production agriculture, but FFA was kind of foreign. My mom did 4-H, and my dad was all sports, the jock, that kind of situation. And when I found FFA, it was like the bug had bit me, and I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
get away from it, and I loved it. And there was a lot of different things that inspired my roadmap, from just being a chapter office to running for offices on the district and state level. What inspired you to run for Ohio FFA state office, district office, etc.?
That's a great question. And as I was preparing for today, kind of thinking about those milestone moments, it's funny again, like it's not that like I was destined to run for state office or anything like that. But at that point in my life, I was actually like way more passionate about basketball and playing basketball and doing all of those things with my dad, who was my coach, but also very much like supported my FFA journey as well. I was also running for the state pork industry queen. And I remember like just passively in the kitchen talking to my mom and like, well, if I get the pork industry queen, then I'm going to withdraw from like running for state office because I want to do that. And she's like, no, you're going to run for state office. At that point, I'd already like put my application in and like that sort of thing. She's like, absolutely not. If you have to pick between the two, you will run for state office and you will not be the pork industry queen. I'm like, okay. So I just like remember so distinctly that conversation in the kitchen. And I obviously mom knew what, if I were to be elected, what that experience would be like and what that would mean to me and on all of those things. And I did not know all of those things at the time. And I was like, well, yeah, pork industry queen, like that contest will be over first. I'll know, I'll do that. Then I'll go to college and it'll all like be settled. And I'm really glad mom put her foot down. And I did not win pork industry queen, so I would have ended up continuing to run for state office anyways. But yeah, I don't know. It's just really, that moment is very clear in my mind.
Absolutely. No, it's kind of crazy. At the time, you're like, mom doesn't know anything. And then you look back and you're like, man, she knew it all. I mean, to an extent, obviously not a genius, but
Yeah.
in that same wavelength, I look back on certain things that my mom would provide advice for in my blue jacket and be like, you're crazy. I'm not biting off more than I can chew. And then we were actually talking on the phone the other day. I was like, yeah, you were right. I hate to even say that to you, but you were right. And I wonder if that's a consensus among most FFA members, or I don't know, maybe they agree with their mom 24/7. Who knows?
Yeah.
But there's so many skills through the blue jacket that we gain, soft skills and maybe even more specific ones. Are there certain skills that you gained in the blue jacket that have transferred directly to your career today?
Absolutely. So I did public speaking, the contest, all 4 years, and that is certainly a skill that I use regularly. I'm often giving presentations on any number of topics, so that's definitely one. I would say time management, which is maybe like a softer skill or not as like defined in a CDE or something like that. But for me in high school, being involved in FFA, being an officer, kind of figuring out how do you juggle Parley Pro practice in the morning, getting your homework done, basketball practice in the evening, and just kind of like sorting that out has been wildly helpful as I kind of navigate a career. And then I mentioned Parley Pro. I still geek out. I am a self-proclaimed association nerd, and so knowing kind of the basics of Parley Pro and like a good business meeting, agenda setting, that sort of thing are certainly things I use on a regular basis as well.
Absolutely. No, we had a lot of kids in our chapter that really enjoyed Parley Pro going on for pre-law and things of that nature. And it's kind of crazy how those skills or even those competitions that you're like, oh, this is just fun. I like to argue or debate, and Parley Pro competitions have transferred directly into career relations, if that makes any sense. And I did public speaking as well, Miss Ellen, and that was my niche. I loved it. And
Yeah.
I still love it. That's probably why I have a podcast. And making those connections and just talking with people and learning their journeys. How did that public speaking role for you prepare you for international work?
Great question, and I will answer that. But one contest or skill that I completely forgot that is like one that I use all the time is I did the ag mechanics CDE. I was like usually the only girl just in my
Yeah.
like little welding booth, looking at fasteners and all that good stuff. And I would say, like, I don't know that I retained all of the information from that contest, but it did certainly give me the confidence to be able to like work in that space. My husband and I have renovated our own home and just kind of like going back to like, how to figure this out, Ellen. Like, how to,
Yeah.
you can do this was another one that I'm not necessarily like renovating my office space on a regular basis, but something I have really appreciated in my adult life. Okay, public speaking and my international work. So, I think just like the role that I have, the nature of how we do our programs and our events and our conferences, being able to like give a presentation with confidence to our stakeholders has been really helpful. And I would say the other thing is it's not just our stakeholders. If I'm leading a staff meeting and hope I'm wanting to organize and motivate my fellow colleagues, it comes into play in those moments too. So one of the speeches I did for one of my contests, I did the prepared speaking. The topic I chose was manure, and I again like I'm like I geek out about really interesting things, but I found it really interesting, like how manure is used as like a tool for, like fertilizer and like all of the different things. And like, how do you manage manure? How does it become a problem? All of those things. And so the title of that speech was Poop, Problem or Profit. And I can probably still say some of those paragraphs because I spent a
Absolutely.
lot of time with it. As you know, like the things just get stuck in your head. very fortunate. I won the state of Ohio and then got to compete nationally with my poop problem or profit. And in Ohio, the prepared speaker winner gives their speech on stage. I don't know if that's the case for
Oh man,
every.
not for Florida. At least I can attest for Great Sunshine State.
Yeah. So I think like being, I don't know, maybe 17 years old on a stage in front of 7,000 people talking about poop. That is like, it takes a special kind of confidence and comfort in yourself to be able to do that. And, or being willing to be that uncomfortable, you know? And I think in international work, I certainly don't know everything about all of the cultures, about all of the things, but being willing to be uncomfortable or confident enough to sit in those spaces so I can learn from other people, so we can have those human to human connections around agriculture, is something that I couldn't do my job without.
Absolutely. No, I 110% agree with having the confidence and to be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much growth in the uncomfortable that you don't think about.
Yeah.
And like as I reflect on my FFA journey, there was a whole lot of uncomfortable, but I probably learned more in those times of uncomfortable or failure than I ever did on any success by far. And I think it's unique to reflect on that and be like, man, I learned more in those moments that I didn't quite like, you know?
Yeah.
What led you to this career? Was it kind of something you were like, okay, I'm working through my career path, boom, it happens? Or was this something that maybe in high school you're like, that's what I want to do?
Definitely not in high school, but I would say that earlier in career, I was able to kind of point that out. So in high school, going into college, my hope, dream, and aspiration was to be an on-air farm broadcaster. And when I got to Ohio State, I had some experiences in student organizations, but I also worked for Ohio Farm Bureau, which I would say was like the student activity of like you have members of a group and that sort of thing was my first experience with an association type setup. And then Farm Bureau, of course, being a much more formalized association and membership. And then I got an opportunity to intern with RFD TV in Omaha, Nebraska. And yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, perfect. Like, I'm going to get this on air thing figured out.
You.
Yes. And I got there and I was like, actually, this is so not for me. Like, I really don't enjoy it. It wasn't if I could just sit and be on air and talk all of the time, that would be great. But for anyone who knows that kind of side of the business is far more complex. It takes
Pretty much is.
so many more hours than when you're just sitting in front of the camera. And it's not that I wasn't willing to put in the work. I didn't enjoy that kind of work. And so I ended up working more with the events team at RFD TV, and that was really amazing. They hired me to come back full time before I left for the summer. So went back, completed my senior year at Ohio State, and then worked full time for RFD TV doing brand management, marketing, some events. And I did a lot of like relationships with the programmers that have shows on RFD TV, which again was kind of maybe my first look at member services in that way.
Yeah.
Then I took a job with Ohio Corn and Wheat. So moved back to the great state of Ohio and got to work directly with farmers in that association, kind of like arena. And man, did I love it. Oh my goodness. I had so much fun. Just working directly with farmers was really meaningful and impactful for me, something I could very easily get behind. And then through that experience with Ohio Corn and Wheat, we of course have national partners. And one of those national partners was the U.S. Grains and BioProducts Council. And so I had an opportunity to meet the person that was in my role at the time. And that's when I was like, that's it. That is what I want to do. And so personal and professional reasons, my husband and I had been long distance for 4.5 years once we got engaged. Yeah. My husband is also a state officer. We met through FFA, and he was working for National FFA at the time in Indianapolis. And so we decided we should live in the same zip code when we get married. And so we both relocated to Washington, D.C. And then I took a role with a union. It's my only job outside of agriculture. And it was, again, extremely eye opening. My first time working across time zones with, a national organization. It was a really great experience to kind of diversify what I saw as like, how do you serve members, learning an audience, learning how you talk to them, communicate that with them, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, I just wasn't as excited about the mail, which is extremely important and very complex and very cool, but not where my passion lies. So I jumped back into agriculture with the American Seed Trade Association. I did member services and communication there. And then this job opened up. My predecessor left, and it was again a very interesting time where my husband was like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And I said, the worst thing that happens is I apply to this job and they offer it to me. And I have to decide, am I going to leave a job that I love, that I know that I love what I'm doing right now, for a job that I think I'm going to love and have thought that for 8 years now. And lo and behold, the worst thing ever happened. They offered me the job, had to make the decision, and did decide to jump. And I'm thrilled. I was right, clear back in 2015, that this is a job that I love to do and I'm really passionate about.
Oh my gosh, that's quite the resume, man. And all of that sounds very interesting and unique in its own way, and I can kind of relate to the point of like wanting to make those connections and finding the things that you love just as much as things that you don't love, and taking that leap of faith. When Farm for Profit Media came to me and asked, Paige, do you want to start a youth and ag podcast? I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm not qualified for that. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never been a part of anything like this. I was just doing some social media management for them on the side, and this was born. And I've kind of found that I do like the broadcasting side of things and making those connections, and working across time zones is really confusing. But other than that, I can't say there's really a bad side to it for me. As far, I've had a very positive experience, and each journey kind of leads you on the right path eventually. For listeners who don't know, what does the US Grains and Bioproducts Council do? That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. We actually just changed our name August 1, 2025. We added "and" bioproducts. So we used to be the U.S. Grains Council. We're now U.S. Grains and Bioproducts Council. And that is because the work that we're doing, it has expanded in the past couple of years. So the very high level short version of USGBC is we are both an association and a USDA cooperator. We have full-time presence in 30 countries, programs in 70 countries, and we work to promote the exports of corn, sorghum, barley, ethanol, and DDGs. And those ethanol DDGs is why we added the "and" bioproducts. We've been working on DDGs since early 90s and ethanol since 2014. And we wanted it to be really clear that we represent that work and that portfolio in the name too, which is why we changed it. So we're a staff of about 150 globally. My job is I get to connect with our members in the US, take their priorities to our international operations, take all the good stuff that we're doing internationally, and communicate that back to our members to talk about the value of the work that we're doing. And I think I just have the best job ever. I really love it.
That's awesome. To love what you do is to not work a day in your life, right?
Exactly.
Like, if you enjoy what you're doing, then it all pays off. What is
Mm-hmm.
it like to live in Washington, D.C., like as a full-time resident? I've visited, I went to the Washington Leadership Conference, went with family, all the things there. But this small town girl has problems in Gainesville, Florida with the amount of people in concrete. What's it like living in Washington?
Yeah, it's a really cool place to live. I would say I grew up on a farm in middle of nowhere in Northwest Ohio, and my commute today is past the Capitol building. We pass it every morning on the way in, and it still blows my mind that small town Ellen is living in our nation's capital. I used to kind of go by the monuments and see the Washington Monument when I was working at ASTA, and same thing. I've yet to get tired or I don't really just like accept that this is my life now, even though we've lived here since 2018. It was certainly an adjustment. When we were preparing to move, we sold one car, and we were going to be a one car family and just have it like parked, because parking in DC is like its own thing. It was going to be like parked in the city, but not like at where we were living. And my friends and family are like, well, how will you get to work if you don't have your car? Just like adjusting to public transit is a whole thing. Carrying your groceries is a whole thing. Like, I don't know, like it was certainly an adjustment. I feel much more settled now. Routines are in. I love the metro. I love the buses. Sometimes we bike, and we have a car, so sometimes we drive too. We use all the modes of transportation here in Washington D.C. I would say that was the biggest adjustment. I have always loved people, and so I am just tickled when I get to see the people watching that happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah, on the way to work, at lunch, whatever. So the people has never been a problem. That's always been fulfilling and interesting to me.
Well, there you go. No, I remember trying to do the metro when I was with 300 of my close FFA friends, and that was really overwhelming for me just because, like, small town girl, I just drive. That's just how
Yeah.
it works. And then when I got to college, you don't drive, you walk everywhere. And
Hmm.
at home, you don't walk. That's just not how it works. And so maybe not on the biggest scale that you're saying, Miss Ellen, but I definitely can relate to the uncomfortable and kind of figuring it out. But once you go back home, you're like, I can drive?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's just crazy how different parts of our world function in different ways and things of that nature and the diversity of
Yeah, I
things.
actually, the first time I felt like a local was we moved in we moved here in March of 2018, and that following spring, which is when most every eighth grader in the United States comes to DC to see the sights. I remember I was on a metro, and eighth graders took over the car, and at the next stop I like went two cars down to not be overran by eighth graders, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like car hopping at a stop. Look at me being local. That's like the first
Oh,
time I was like, I live here now.
yeah. That's funny. Like, okay, I'm a local. I don't want to be bothered. Like, I'm
Yeah,
just trying to work. And back in the day, you're like, oh, look at all the eighth graders.
exactly, yeah.
See how things change. As someone who might also be looking into a career path like yours, Miss Ellen, what's a piece of advice that you would share with them, or maybe like take this as a mentor moment for you and facilitate that for our listeners?
Yeah, I would say if you're interested in international work or association work, because I straddle kind of both sides in my role, I would say find some other experiences. I'm always happy to talk more in detail of what it looked like and the things I picked up on the many job stops before I got here that really set me up for success. But I would say like the key is being being comfortable with uncomfortable, like we talked about, especially in the international space. You just can't know all the things. And so being able to navigate that tactfully and professionally, but also sitting in a lot of unknown. That's one. And the other is like understanding perspective. That's really key from the association side. What are my members feeling? What are they experiencing? But also from the international side. Some of the bigger differences, like just like physical touch, culture to culture is very different. My colleagues and friends in Mexico, Latin America, We give kisses every time. We're doing cheek to cheek kisses, absolutely. Whereas some of the business colleagues that I've met from Southeast Asia, we actually bow to each other, and that's how you say hello and goodbye. And there's absolutely no physical touching with them. And so just like sitting, you probably would never dream of like saying hello by kissing someone on the cheek, right? That's not something we do typically in
No.
the U.S., but nor do we bow. But understanding perspective and like how do you show respect, how do you show curiosity, is really powerful in any human to human interaction.
That's something I never thought about. Like, you just blew my mind. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy to think that even something as simple as a greeting is
Hmm.
so different everywhere you go, and yeah, that would be something to get used to, for sure,
Yeah,
especially coming from small town Ohio or small town South Florida, it's very different,
it is.
but and then again, like, you get to see the world. You get to
Hmm.
people everywhere and make those connections, and I'm not always a fan of the "it's not what you know, it's who you know" kinda situation because it is also what you know, but it's those people and connections that can help facilitate your own growth to grow.
Absolutely.
So, I guess that's the way I interpret that, but it's nice to make those connections everywhere. Well, we're about to round out your episode. Is there something you would tell your younger self now?
Ooh. Um,
This question always gets everybody.
yeah. I would say something I would tell my younger self is that the world is a really, really big place and it's beautiful, and getting to experience not only the beauty of yesterday was Earth Day, our actual surroundings, but the people that make our world really beautiful should never be underestimated. And I think, especially where I'm sitting today, I'm actually sitting in my home office in Washington, D.C., not all that exciting or glamorous, but I'm 33 weeks pregnant. And thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you. Just thinking about like my baby and I, while pregnant, I have been to 15 states and 7 countries, and
Oh,
I just like can't say like how meaningful and how much perspective you can gain by seeing the world and making those connections. And I don't, my baby, of course, won't know or understand the places they've been already. But, my baby's been through the Panama Canal, and I think that's really cool. And the world's just really cool. Keep your eyes open and stay curious.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Jacket podcast. It has been such a joy to get to meet you and pick your brain. I've learned so much, and I hope our listeners have too. Listeners, thanks again for joining us on another Friday. Be sure to like and subscribe as always.